Good day, esteemed panelists and fellow participants. My name is Cha, and today I am going to present to you my paper entitled Do Filipino Investors Care? A pilot study on the intention to invest in sustainably responsible stock investment and Shariah-compliant stock investments in the Philippines. This is going to be the flow of the presentation. Now let's go immediately to the definition. So sustainable responsible investment, or SRI, is an ethics-based impact investment that aims to promote and achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals without sacrificing the stock returns. Now, while it may go by several names such as green investment, ethical investment, or sustainable financing, most scholars are united with the description that investors of these funds greatly consider environmental, social, and governance in their investment decisions. In Asia, there is a scarce source of reliable data on SRI, despite us being very vulnerable to climate risks. In fact, in the Philippines, it's only in 2019 that publicly listed companies are required by Securities and Exchange Commission to submit their sustainability report. Now, SEC further admits that the Philippine financial market is still underdeveloped, but sustainable finance is slowly getting the attention of investors. So, on the other hand, we have Sharia compliant stocks, which are faith-based investments that follow Islamic ways. Basically, these are stocks that pass the screening of a designated board as being lawful according to Islamic laws for not being involved in liquor, swine, or excessive rates, or what we call usury. Now, while this is primarily meant to target Filipino Muslims, PIAD emphasized in 2021 that this is actually a misconception because it's not exclusively meant for people with Islamic faith. Instead, Filipinos should know that Islamic banking is a system which is meant to access a global investor base amounting to trillions of US dollars, which is available for investors who seek low-risk investments. Now, in the Philippines, it is only in 2016 that stocks were certified as Sharia compliant. In fact, in 2019, a Republic Act was passed, which is also called the Islamic Banking Act of the Philippines, which is aimed at meeting demands for Sharia compliant products and the regulation of Islamic financial institutions in the country. So this brings us to the objective of this paper, which is to identify the determinants of intention to invest in SRI and SCI of Filipino investors. Specifically, the following questions will be addressed. First, what is the level of intention to invest in SRI and SCI among Filipino investors? Second, what is the relationship among financial literacy, perceived risk, perceived returns, environmental principles and Sharia principles, and intention to invest in SRI and SCI of Filipino retail investors? And third, how do experience and the behavior of other investors influence the behavior of Filipino investors? Now, to answer these questions, this is the framework that was used in the paper. For this part here, the theory of recent action was used, and several studies were utilized in identifying the independent variables in the study. For this part of the conceptual framework, behavioral finance was utilized. So basically, it was the definition of investment behavior of retail stock investors was borrowed from Sohail et al. 2020, while experience and other investors' behavior were borrowed from the study of Jeoba and Haran in 2016. Now, this is the methodology of the paper. So first is it is a quantitative study, and it is a pilot study as well. So a pilot study is an effective tool to help determine the feasibility of carrying out a larger trial of an intervention. The unit of analysis is the retail stock investors in the Philippines. Now, there are only 25 respondents from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. This might seem quite a few, but according to Whitehead et al. In 2016 and Westland and Stewart, this is actually an acceptable sample size for pilot studies. So the data used were both primary and secondary data. Now, to get the primary data, structured questionnaires were used with, and the structured questionnaire has 4 parts. So we have part 1 demographics, part 2 is the measurement of EP and SV, part 3 the risk, the return, the FL, and part 4 is the open-ended question for our proposition. This is a cross-sectional study, and Excel and Jamovi were used in processing it. As to the results, for the first problem, the level of intention to invest, it's actually very high at 92% for SRI. Meanwhile, for SCI, it is moderate at 64%. The standard used in assessing the level is from Chen and Volk in 1998. Meanwhile, for the second problem, which is a relationship, it was found that all of the variables were not significant in predicting our dependent variable, the intention to invest in SRI and intention to invest in SCI. Therefore, all the hypotheses are rejected. Now, third, on the experience and the behavior of other investors and its influence on participants' behavior, all the propositions were actually accepted because for the first proposition, all of the participants agreed that experience to influence them in affecting their behavior in choosing where to invest. So they cited the following. First, their experience make or help them make better choices due to first-hand learnings and the ability to assess their preferences. Second, experience would give a better understanding of risks because this can be translated to a sense of security in terms of investment. Now, it seems like the respondents equate knowledge to experience. Now, onto the second proposition, 80% of the respondents agreed that the behavior of other investors is important in choosing where to invest. And the reasons cited were guidance engaging personal investments, knowledge on risks and return, mentorship, and being inspired by success stories. The other 20% of the participants said that they do not need other investments input, other investors' input because they are confident in their own knowledge and their ability to analyze. Now, as to the discussion for the result of the level of intention to invest in the study, it's actually consistent with the studies of Gutsche and Jafar. For the second one, this is not, meanwhile for the second one, it's not consistent with all the studies used because most of these studies actually are full-blown studies. So this is just a pilot study, and that is why I would like to bring up again what was said about pilot studies. So accurately establishing the relationship among the variables may be challenging in pilot studies, as in this case, because the real intention of a pilot study is actually to refine the framework, to compute the proper sample sizes, etc. Now, on the third one, on the experience and behavior of other investors and its influence participants' behavior, this is actually consistent with the result of the study of Jayova and Haron in 2016, because they also found that Malaysian investors agree in said propositions. So lastly, for the recommendations. So first, the number of participants should be increased or revisited or computed properly. The research design should be improved. The questions in the questionnaire should be improved as well. And in-depth interview should be considered because a prior study revealed that the best method is actually a mixed method analysis for SRIs. So that's it. Thank you very much.